Welcome back, everyone, to the Mint Collective here at the Collectable studio. I'm here with Hanna from She Collects Cards. Super excited for this conversation because she is the Formula One queen. She owns the Formula One space in my eyes. I love it. It's so much fun to follow her journey. Super excited about this. So how's the show so far? You just having a good time here?
Yeah, absolutely. Meeting you and other folks that I don't really get to see normally. I think that's been the best part of it all, and having tons of conversation around Formula One, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's race weekend.
It is race weekend.
And a very controversial one. So just chatting it up about that. So I've been having a blast. Yeah.
Awesome. You know, I bet Botas plus 10,000 to win this race. I put down $10. I'm like, why not? And now who knows? Maybe something happens, someone crashes, and he wins.
Good luck.
Yeah, no, exactly. Probably just burned $10, just like this entire weekend, but whatever. So to get started, just tell us like how you just got into cards in the first place. Not even Formula One, just in general.
Yeah, for sure. I actually didn't start too early. I started in early 2020, like a lot of folks. It was right after Kobe passed away. I was a huge Kobe fan all my lifetime, but when I heard the shocking news, I just kind of like looked around my house and I was like, man, I've been calling myself a big fan for a while, and I own like nothing of him that's like truly tangibly like meaningful aside from like jerseys, right? So I immediately went to StockX, looked at his shoes, like size 15. That it's not gonna fit me, but those were going for like $2,000 at that time.
Oh.
Yeah, it was outrageous. Like, okay, that's a little bit much, but I was talking to another friend who's been in the card collecting journey for a bit by then. He said, hey, he just sent me like an eBay link with the 96 Topps Kobe Bryant rookie card, PSA 9.
Okay.
He said, hey, like grab some of these. Like these are like his true rookie cards. So I bought 3 of them for $200 each.
That was a pretty good buy at the time.
Yeah, and 2 weeks flew by and they tripled in price to 600. And so I've been a big sort of investor like passively as much as I can. So I saw an opportunity where I could marry my passion for sports with perhaps a sort of like an alternative asset investing. So that's how it kind of
awesome.
all started. Yeah.
When you were younger, did you collect or did you know about cards, or was this like your first real entry point and learning point? Because honestly, like for me, I've been around this since I was like 8 years old, collecting ever since then. So like for me, it's just always been a part of my life, but I have to imagine jumping in.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn fast, and you learned a lot fast, obviously.
No, you're absolutely right. I think our journeys are probably very, very different. It wasn't culturally for me, for my family, to be introduced to cards, so I never, ever knew about the existence of cards until maybe late 2019 when I heard it through the friend. So an incredibly new space for me, but the idea, I think, of a collectible was something that I was always akin to, like art, for example, was something that I was always interested in.
Yeah.
How the value of artworks never depreciate in depressions or economic crisis. So that was something that I was aware of, but I saw an opportunity where, because I know how much sports mean for for all of us, right? Like, so I definitely saw an opportunity there where it could be something fun to do.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I have a note here, and it says the first time you made a post on Formula One cards is on June 11th, 2021. It was 3 cards graded by PSA.
Oh, yeah.
Hamilton, and I think like Verstappen and another Hamilton potentially.
Yeah.
All PSA 9s. Yeah, I know you weren't happy about that. But my question is was that right around when you started getting into Formula One? Was kind of like, that's a little bit after the first release maybe, or like right not even middle of the way last season, a little bit before middle of the way probably. But was that your first entry? Was like last year around that time?
Yeah, so to kind of backtrack a little bit, I've been a fan of Formula One vicariously through my husband, who's like incredibly into it, and every Sunday it's just like race. During COVID it was, there was a little bit of a break, but even before that, we lived in Austin, so we've been to the Austin track, back in 2012, 2013 as well. But so we had a huge, kind of interest in F1 to begin with, and then we heard about the set coming out from Topps. It's very unmarketed in a sense. It just kind of came out of nowhere.
It did.
Yeah.
Really. I remember it's just like nothing, and then Formula One, Hamilton purple's like $1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it
what's this?
just kind of happened behind the scene, and so when we heard about the release, we just went ahead and bought a few cases because they were kind of affordable at that point.
Yeah.
And so I sold some, I ripped some. So yeah, that's around just before summer when I started to get into it. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that.
And I remember when I was grading it at PSA, they were like, "What the heck is this?"
They didn't even know at the time.
The set was not in it.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's so crazy. We're gonna let Nate jump in here. Nate,
So, Nate.
tap in.
I like it.
It's happening.
So Nate here doesn't know much about Formula One outside of my dad and I and what we talk about, and he's learning a little bit.
Yeah.
I watched the last lap of the last race. So
The most important one, yeah.
I'm one lap, and I watched the podium last year. So that's
And
the
you
most
watched a little-
Formula One I've seen.
You watched a
so
little
far.
Drive to Survive, right?
I watched the first 3 episodes of the first season of Drive to Survive. So you could say I know who
You, like,
Ricardo is.
Piecemeal everything. You need to like complete the race or like complete the series, Nate.
I
Come on.
agree. One of those things, trying to find time with everything else. But it is interesting to me. And it does seem like it's kind of fun. I do keep missing the most important moments, like 3 laps before
The two Red
Perez
Bull?
and the Red Bull cars fail. Last year, turn on for the podium for the last race of the season.
God.
So you
So
missed
I
the
missed the
last
last lap. So I'm getting close. I'm getting
Very close.
But as somebody that wants to get into it but doesn't really understand, what should I look for?
This year's race. This year is going to be absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the perfect year for you to like get exposed to F1, I think, because I think tides are changing, and all these drivers that are fighting for the top 5 seats, I think it's going to mix every time, and they're all so young. Like, they're here to stay. So you get to see a player or a driver develop from this guy who's like super fast but like very emotional, can't make the right decisions at those times, but you see them develop over time, because that was Hamilton maybe like 10 years ago, right? So this year is it.
Okay.
There you go. I have a question. So you're obviously very into it. You ripped a lot. I've seen you post some amazing cards. Somehow you had an Orange Wave out 25 and 2 packs here
Yes.
of Hamilton portrait. That's insane. And that is your card in your collection now, and everything. Like, that's yours.
Yeah, it's going to PSA right
Wow.
now as we speak. It's being driven down to OC. So
Wow,
we'll see.
that's unbelievable. Well, congrats on that. I opened 3 cases, and we didn't hit one portrait Hamilton numbered or refractored in 3 cases. It's tough to pull this good stuff out here.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, and it was all in one night too. So I was just like, it was wild. But my question is, what do you see between long-term hold and short-term flip? Because I was in a very similar position with soccer a year and a half ago, where I was like, you know what, like, I know this is gonna be a big deal. I know it's gonna be a big deal for years to come,
Yeah.
but I just can't hold everything. And I know
Yeah.
I want to hold some pieces, want to sell some, use some to get other stuff in soccer
Mm-hmm.
or in Formula One or whatever it is. But how do you see the balance when you have such a big collection like you do, including some amazing pieces?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, and that's something that I've been kind of working out on my own recently. Is, like you said, you can't hold everything, and when you want to invest in other stuff, you need to unfortunately rotate some stuff. And so I think the strategy here really is like long-term holding anything numbered, and I try to kind of cut it down to the golds. So anything out of 50 portraits of the top 3 drivers, and on my list right now is Lewis, Max, and Leclerc.
Yeah.
Then I generally try to keep those, or if there's trade opportunities for a bigger card, then I try to use them for that. Because thankfully, right, we got into it decently early enough that our buy-in is decently low.
Yeah.
So we're mostly playing with house money, right? But
Exactly.
but sort of flip, or I mean, I don't want to call it flip, but I think a great entry point sort of price and like card for folks to Formula One isn't going to be $50,000 Max Verstappen red, and I think it should be more like a Sapphire Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton, like say 10 or 9 base cards, right?
Yeah.
That's like a good way to get into the hobby. So generally, I try to give everybody a very generous deal on like base cards, so that we're like being advocates of the
I love
hobby, and they get to learn about it.
Very nice, very nice. I like that. Where do you see F1 in 5 years from now, either in America in general, because as we know, I love those story posts you put up about all the investment coming in Formula One in America, and then also in the hobby, and you can tie it together however you want.
Yeah, Formula One in North America is something that they weren't able to crack for a very, very long time. And internationally, I do believe that North America really drives the majority of like sort of the sports.
In soccer,
Like-
it's huge. There's so much American investment
Exactly,
in soccer. In the Premier League and
exactly. I
everything.
mean, you hear about American investors buying out EPL teams potentially. I mean, that's such an exciting news.
Yeah.
So we know that money's here, and the fact that Formula One decided to partner to open up Miami this year, first time.
Yeah.
And then next year they already announced that they will be driving right here in Vegas.
Yeah.
Literally, it's gonna be like Monaco, but like on freaking
American soil?
steroid because it's gonna go through all these freaking hotels and all the clubs. It's gonna be an insane view.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how much money is gonna roll through that weekend.
Yeah.
I'm not advising you to get a condo out here or anything like that, but I mean, I'm just saying it's going to be insane. So I think 5 years down, I feel like the U.S. market is just beginning. It's like less than 1% tapped in. So I see a huge growth of the market.
I mean, there's not even an American top sponsor on a team yet, right?
Not yet,
And
no.
maybe Haas is the first one with their opening, especially given its American ownership.
Correct.
But there's just so much. That's why I like it. And also, I'm sure that this is something you thought about too. And a lot of viewers for us have maybe heard this or don't know, but like just the supply versus the demand is what matters so much in Formula One.
Correct.
They weren't expecting what it is now for Formula One 2020 and even 2021. I don't know how much you've just looked into the new set.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a few more parallels, but they didn't make that many more, and they didn't even make that many more hobby boxes potentially too. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was definitely, underestimating the impact of 2021. I thought they were going to print the crap out of it,
Yeah.
and there wasn't going to be enough demand to keep up with it. But I stand corrected. Like the demand that I'm seeing, like the daily DMs, which you probably get as well, of folks who are primarily basketball, football, baseball, reaching out, asking questions about Formula One. I think that's like very, very great thing. Formula One, just to give context, historically the Middle East has been where Formula One lives and breathes because that's where money typically sits, right, globally. But the fact that they're making more tracks and more events here in the U.S. means that there is chatters and there are potential billionaires who are willing to open up their wallet for this great sport.
I mean, we're talking 3 races in a year.
Yeah.
Next year potentially.
That's insane.
That's so many in the same country. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I have a
Go ahead,
question.
Nate.
So you said Haas, only American team.
Ownership.
But ownership. Sponsorships opposite of ownership, right? What do you think is going to happen if there's more races here, more Americans are getting involved? You think there's going to be more American teams opening up? And if so, drivers transferring over to American teams, do you think that's going to be important for American investors?
Yeah, maybe I can take it first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, getting a brand new team into Formula One is an extremely difficult process. I think Porsche is ready to roll in 2025. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Audi too. Aren't they looking at it or making cars or something?
Perhaps a partnership of some sort. So these things take time. And if you think about American, and let's take Red Bull out of the picture because they're a huge exception. Automotive manufacturer in the U.S., like GM, Chrysler, those type of cars, I don't think will compete competitively. To be honest, with these other European manufacturers who've been doing this for how many decades? I don't know. So
right, exactly.
I think it's a little bit sort of a reach to think that. I mean, I would love to see it, but I don't know how soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the way you're going to see more American interest is going to be in the sponsorship category.
Correct.
And that's just the easiest entry based on money. And like you said, it's hard. So this is easy. You just slap your logo
exactly.
on it.
Like Google just sponsored McLaren.
Like a side sponsorship this year? Or
I think it's a full-out sponsorship.
Wow.
They changed the color of the wheels to make it look like the chrome,
That's so
image.
cool.
Yeah, well,
I didn't
it's
see that.
unfortunate because McLaren's not doing so
No, they're
well.
not. They're not. Come on, Lando.
So
Never
they're
knew
not
that.
getting too much screen time, but yeah, that's something that they did this year.
Wow, very cool. So that's good to see.
Yeah.
Good to see. So there is a race today. I mean, you and I both have to go on a panel after this,
know.
and we're not going to see it. But who wins today? What's your prediction?
Ferrari won too.
Again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, knowing that the last race, they didn't even have the engine even to half of its power. I think that's the first thing. And then this racetrack, as we know, is it's a very dangerous racetrack with if you make a small mistake, you will run into the wall. And I think we'll see a few red flags today. And typically, I think Max Verstappen, maybe not so much Perez, but Max tends to be very aggressive.
Very
and
risky.
And I think
he's
he might
not
lose
gonna
it.
finish?
I don't think so.
Wow, 2 DNFs in a row. Nate, what's your prediction?
Ricardo winning it.
That's not happening.
If 10 people DNFs, maybe,
Yeah,
right?
maybe. But hey, I hope Bottas at that point. Okay, so who wins the championship by the end of the year? The constructors and the driver?
Oh, that's a It's a very tough question. I think constructor will go to Ferrari. They're looking extremely strong. I think it's not even a question, I think, to most people. In terms of drivers' championship, I think it will be a Ferrari. But whether it's a Sainz or a Leclerc, that's where I'm still indeterminate on, because when they're continuing to do 1-2 most of the races, you know that Sainz is not going to stay at 2.
Yeah.
The engineer might tell him to stay back, support, play defense. Look, if I'm Sainz and I've been waiting for this opportunity for all my career, I'm not just going to hand it over to
sandbag and then give it
exactly.
to him. Dude, what do you think about Max? Do you think Max is going to give him a run for the money, even with the team so hot right now, Ferrari?
Listen, I'm a Lewis fan, and I just don't really like Max. And from a skills perspective, I think he is the best on track. But I think he still makes emotional, irrational decisions on the track.
Yeah, my dad, he thinks he's so crazy. I mean, for good reason.
He's
right?
absolutely insane.
He is.
Because like the key point is, I know this because my husband races. Like, it's really a matter of like how late are you going to brake in a corner?
Yeah.
Max just takes it to another.
Well, we saw it last week. He pushed it so far that his brakes locked around the corner.
Exactly.
That's exactly what happened. Okay, so transitioning out of Formula One. Women of the hobby, something you got involved with a long time ago down at this point. I remember when you or Sam first launched the page, I think you joined her. That was for sure over a year ago, right?
Yeah.
A year and a half ago maybe at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 41 just came out now of the podcast. And there's been a lot of amazing people that have came through the podcast.
Yeah.
Talk about your role with Women of the Hobby, because I think Sam started, and you join her on a lot of the podcasts, maybe every other?
Yeah. Definitely Sam Shufford, Women of the Hobby, face of the Women of the Hobby, our future of Women of the Hobby for sure. I joined forces with Sam earlier on in the page because I felt like I could, and it was a very open conversation with Sam where I could help her in any way possible, and I was up for it. And one of the areas that we agreed that could kind of get the page kind of solidified was to do a regular sort of podcast, just us two, to kind of get our name out there. And we were thankfully able to leverage some of the network with my page and kind of co-join forces. And I absolutely have no problem with overlapping of audience and viewers from She Collects Cards and Women of the Hobby. And we just actually had breakfast together, and we have some great ideas. It's a matter of our own time, but hoping that we can find more help to really broaden. We actually had a happy hour hosted by Ty and Christina yesterday for Women of the Hobby, and you won't believe, at the National maybe there were 25 of us. Yesterday there was maybe 60 of us.
Really?
I would say.
Because we were talking, this show, every single show we go to, I do feel like that there's more women at every single show. Tampa, I feel like there's a lot. National, there's a lot compared to the 2 years prior. And here, obviously, a lot too.
Yeah.
Do you think that just, a lot of the times it's you got to see it to believe it if you kind of like it. And that's how, for me in high school, I never even shared that I collected sports cards with any of my friends. And then we started SlabStox because I didn't want people to feel like that they couldn't collect cards or couldn't talk about it or whatever. And now it's just like this, and everyone knows. So, do you feel like that's getting to that point now, where finally, people who do love cards, or maybe shy about before, now coming together as a group, and thanks to you and Sam and others like you all?
Absolutely. A lot of the women that I meet here and in other platforms, they're not newcomers per se. They've been doing this for years, but they did it in closet, right?
Yeah.
So now they're able to kind of come out and not be the only female collecting cards, and not be afraid to come out. And I don't want to take any of these credit. I mean, ladies like Christina, Ty, Sarah Layton. There's so many folks who've been doing this for 20, 30 years alongside other male who've done such a tremendous job that, when you tell them, oh, Ty's in this group, oh, Christina's in this group, you automatically kind of get this, oh, okay, let's hear what you have to say. So we didn't start this from scratch at all. Women have always been involved in the hobby, and I feel like Sam and myself, we were able to raise, awareness to it through social media platforms. Yeah.
Absolutely love it. If you had one thing that you wanted for the next years in the future for Women in the Hobby, what would it be? Because obviously, it doesn't stop here. Mm-hmm. You said 25 at an event to 60 within a few months is amazing. Over the last year, it's been many more. what do you want out of it for either women in the hobby or the hobby in general?
Yeah. So I mentioned a lot of the women currently in the hobby have been here for a long time, so they're existing collectors. But what Sam and I just discussed was we would love to kind of get, because sports fans, female or male, there's tons of them out there, right?
Oh, for sure.
If we're able to go out to female sports fans, whether that's Formula One, basketball, soccer, hockey, whatever it is, and convince them that you can actually marry your passion for that sport with a collecting, experience as well, that would be incredible, right? So kind of going after new female collectors. So some ideas that we're kind of in the works with right now is getting those female athletes or female, even in cases of like Zero Cool, which is primarily focused on like leading artists, icons, and things like that.
Yeah.
Like whether it's an artist, female artist that we get in touch with and talk to them about cards. Tell them, hey, do you know that those sheets of autographs you signed actually ended up here, like, and this is your card and this is the value of your card. And that's the way to kind of like advocate for the hobby and make new entrants into the hobby.
We had Anthony Renato join the podcast, and he owns Cards and Culture down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And he played baseball for LSU, and he's got a lot of connections to sporting programs at LSU. And he was telling us that one of his most popular events he did in shop was with the women's basketball team, because so many girls in the area want to come and meet them. And then it was, the activation between them and just hanging out and then cards and learning about it. It's like in the past, there was never that thing, I feel like, because I collected for so long, I never even saw it, to where, like, if I had a friend at school, like, how would she ever interact with cards? I would have, I never would know unless her dad collected cards or mom and got her involved. And that, I feel like, was the only entry point for the last 20 years. And now, even over the last year, it's been so much bigger and better. And y'all are going places, Anthony's going places with that, and it's just really good to see. And I'm happy for what you all have built and the success you've had, and I hope it just keeps on building. And we'll do whatever we can to help share that out too.
Thank you.
So just to end it off, Hanna, what's one thing yourself personally that you just want people to think about in the hobby or going forward, just so I don't know, just to leave them with one lasting thing here?
Yeah, we're all in this hobby for fun, but at the same time, there's a lot in stake nowadays, right? A ton of investments and things like that coming in. So I get that, like 100% for myself as well. Like, would I be as excited as the hobby if I didn't have so much at stake? Maybe not, right? But so I 100% get that. But I think once out of those 10 days that you spend your time researching cards or talking to other people about cards or going to shows, I'd really, encourage everyone to think about what can I do for the hobby. Like, you've gotten so much out of it. Your joy, you made friendships, you've made money, you've gained happiness. Maybe think that one time out of those 10 days, like, what can I do to make this hobby better, bigger, and more fun, right? And I think we all can play a part, whether that's I sometimes really am grateful when I buy something on eBay and people just sneak in, like, some extra cards, like, as a thank you, right? And you feel like, okay, like, yeah, like, there was a monetary transaction for this, but, like, this person truly appreciates cards. And so that makes me want to do the same, right? And so, yeah, just go and think about just one thing that you can do to improve the hobby, and I think we'll find ourselves in a much better position next year.
Awesome. That's so great. Thank you so much for this time. It's a pleasure talking to you and learning about Formula One and Women of the Hobby. Where can people find you on Instagram personally, and then also Women of the Hobby?
Yeah, Women of the Hobby and She Collects Cards. We're both on Instagram and YouTube channel, so come find us.
And then podcast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts?
Yes, all of that, yes.
Awesome, perfect. Well, here we are. This was the last interview here at the Mint Collective in Las Vegas at the Collectable Studio. Such a pleasure talking to Hanna, Anthony, Sam, and Binder from Whatnot. It was just a very great time here. Super excited for the last day of the show for the Formula One race. And if y'all want to watch the rest of the interviews, please check out Coast to Coast Cards, our playlist on YouTube, to see the rest. And we hope you all have a great rest of your week. And next time, make it out to the Mint Collective, because it is an experience you'll not want to miss.
Awesome.
Perfect. That was really good.
Thanks.